Chris Chorney in his studio in Honolulu, Hawaii. Everybody say hi to Chris.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Chris is the mastermind for the band The Groovies and decided to sign his new album called The Groovies with Tremorland.
Groovees.
That's Groovees. How long have you guys been working together?
The Groovies with the current lineup's been around since probably about 2010 or so, and this is the first. The album that we just made is the first album that we made here in this studio, so we're really excited about that.
The compositions were written. A lot of those songs were written together with a friend of yours by the name of Ed Moranti.
Yeah, that's right. Ed's my friend from New York City. I lived in New York for a number of years, and he and I met in at an open mic on the Upper West Side, and we just have been writing songs for a long time together. Unfortunately, he doesn't live in Hawaii anymore, so we kind of collaborate over the phone and online. But he's written about half the songs on this new album, and I've written the other half. And I think a couple are, split right down the middle, where we just, collaborate pretty evenly on stuff.
So, Chris, you're also a cello player, and you teach cello. You've worked with artists like Kanye West at Electric Ladyland in New York City.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I was actually a runner for them when they were working out here in Honolulu, and so just through one thing or another, they heard that I played cello, and I worked on a song with them, and it turned into another and another, and before I knew it, they were flying me out to New York for a couple of recording sessions to finish my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and I think some tracks even made it onto some of the subsequent records, but
that's pretty
it was
cool.
a really great experience. And actually getting to be inside and working inside Electric Lady was one of my career highlights, I must say. And the thing that I will never forget was they put us up in the top studio. I forget which studio it is, Studio B maybe, upstairs. And I remember thinking to myself how kind of run down it looked. No offense to Electric Lady, it's an amazing place, but it looked kind of beat up and run down, kind of like this place. It looks a little,
yeah, you did mention
a little ratty, But that being said, you walk into the live room and the sound was just amazing. It was, for lack of a better word, glorious. It was just the best sound I'd ever heard, and the cello certainly sounded amazing in there. And so I felt really lucky that I got to spend all my time in this tiny little studio that nobody was in, and we just got to hang out there and do some good work there. So we recorded the intro to All of the Lights there with myself on cello, and Mike Dean was on the nice big white grand piano. He played the piano part.
Cool.
And yeah,
cool.
it was a nice intimate session. Anyway.
Yeah, you have a beautiful cello arrangement for one song on the album, Something Better. How did that cello arrangement change your take on the song? I know you did another version of that song a little bit earlier on, which is also featured as a reprise as the last track on the album.
Yeah, on our Bandcamp page, we included a bonus track, which is an alternate take of Something Better. And it was actually sort of more of a calypso version of the song that we decided to include because I liked the live take so much that it just sounded too good to kind of throw away. In the end, we didn't pick it to be the main track because it just didn't quite have what we wanted, and I wanted something a little bit more like, I always imagined driving off across the desert or something. I wanted something a little bit more kind of driving, and the calypso version is a little dancier, and it's still good though. And the cello part is just something I messed around with and came up with one day, and I recorded two cellos and panned them hard left and hard right, and kind of sort of to imply an orchestral part, even though I didn't really want to have anything too lush. But I always kind of liked to throw the cello in when I could, and that was on this record anyway one of the only places that it seemed to fit. And it was only the first two takes of the cello part. I'll admit I didn't really spend too much time on it, but I kind of liked how naturally it came out. Just sort of a thought that came out, and so I just left the original 2 tracks in there. And
did the cello part kind of inspire the whole second arrangement, or was it more put on after that arrangement has already been put in place?
Oh, so no, it came in after the second version, the version that's track 8 or something on the record. That was in place, and then the cello part came in after, and then I believe the vocals were recorded after that.
On the same track, Something Better, where you have the cello element, you also have a somewhat exotic instrument called the tanpura. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the tanpura was actually Kalani's, and we recorded him playing. It's a 4-stringed instrument tuned in octaves, I believe, and it's got that drony sound that accompanies sitar and tablas. It's usually played by a woman, and it's just strummed out of time even, and you just strum across the 4 strings, and it creates this incredibly lush sort of drone, and I love it so much. And we just threw a SM57 up on it and had Kalani do a minute or 2 of it, and we looped it, and we blended that in on Something Better, and I believe the end of the first track, Roxanne.
Oh, okay.
And it might even be somewhere else that I can't remember, but it's always been just such a cool kind of psychedelic sound, and it puts you in a nice frame of mind, and for me it kind of represents the sun, you know. I always think about things as a picture, and
the driving image of a kind of a cruising track for Something
driving
Better
across the desert
fits.
with the tanpura as the sun raining down, and I
that
think
can be heard especially at the last 30 to 40 seconds on that track. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's for cinematic purposes, I guess, and so I'm very proud of the fact that we recorded it ourselves, because we had taken samples from online before, and
Sure.
you know, and it's just nice to know that we had done it ourselves. So, Tempura is definitely one of the weirder. It's not weird. It's just
maybe something that you wouldn't necessarily expect on a Groovy's album, but it adds a lot of flavor, and so does the use of glockenspiel that you guys like to throw in once in a while.
Yeah, the glockenspiel is. Kalani loves the glockenspiel. I love it too, and we love it because of Brian Wilson, and that's our little nod to the Beach Boys, because back in the 60s you hear a lot of that 60s music. You hear a lot of guitar parts and piano parts kind of laced with little twinkly glockenspiel hits, and so just that's, you know, kind of a Pet Sounds nod, I guess, and we use it on kind of the surfy ones. It just seems to have, it kind of enhances the sunlight aspect of the sound.
I would agree.
And so the twinkle, we always wanted something twinkly. So the Studer A27 that we have in the corner there, that's very generously on loan to us from Kelly Heath, who's a spectacular engineer here in Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
And she got it from a gentleman who owned the old studio Kahala, which is not operational anymore, but it was sort of a legendary place. I never got to see it, but a lot of people went through there, and we had not tracked with it yet, but we're going to very soon, and it's in the pipeline, so to speak, for the next few projects. We have a lot of rock bands coming through here that are dying to track on it. 6. This was sort of a surprise for me because I always thought it was a baritone guitar, and I think most people do think it's a baritone. It's technically a bass. With 6 strings tuned up like a regular guitar, only an octave lower, and I love this thing. Something about it, being a cello player, the scale and the closeness of the strings matches the actual distance between strings on a cello much more closely than a 4-string bass or a standard electric bass.
Sure.
And so for some reason this thing feels almost identical to playing the cello for me, and that makes me happy.
That's pretty awesome. Wow.
It somehow I don't have to reach as far. It has the same sound. I don't know. People claim, that it might not have as much low end. I'm not really sure. For our kind of vintagey thing, it seems to have the right sound. Also, it has you can get that plunky McCartney sound out of it pretty easily. I do a lot of palm muting, and then also, it works amazingly well with distortion effects and all of that. So
cool. The Bass 6 by Fender.
Bass 6 by Fender.
How big of a treasure trove is the amount of songs that you and Ed have been working on and that might have never been recorded yet?
A lot. I think we've got I don't know, over the years at least 100 songs, I'm sure. And Ed himself has probably even more just of his own work. Ed's band, by the way, is called Sexy Dangerous, if anybody's interested in checking it out on Facebook.
What's it called?
Sexy Dangerous.
Sexy Dangerous.
Sexy Dangerous is sort of Ed's sort of fun pop persona, I guess.
Gotcha.
And he does kind of fun silly songs. Ed's always been sort of the lyrical genius, I'd say, behind the Groovy's work. So I tend to write music more without lyrics, and Ed was always, he and I together were really good at sort of filling in the other person's thing. So if I wrote a song, he'd write the words, or if he had a specific set of words, I would help fill in the music for that kind of thing too. So that's kind of how we work.
Yeah.
And of the songs on this new record, I'd say about a little more than half of them are from years and years ago. So we're actually finishing work that we started probably back in 2009, and it's taken this long to finally get them recorded.
All right, I'm looking forward to hearing more stuff, and there might be some things for Tremorland. We're definitely glad to have the Groovies and Chris Chorney's work on our label, on our music library. See you next time. Get yourself